Compliance with the 40% cap on indoor dining at food establishments countrywide is being closely monitored by the Ghana Tourism Authority. The authority at the weekend, on the heels of Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony approving the partial resumption of indoor dining, conducted inspections at a total of 66 restaurants. During the inspection, 23 eateries were given conditional approval to facilitate indoor dining. Director of the Ghana Tourism Authority, Carla James, during a telephone interview with this newscast, stated that businesses pursuing approval to recommence indoor dining services are required to submit their standard operating procedures (SOPs) to the GTA. The SOPs should outline the measures in place to keep patrons safe in keeping with the COVID-19 gazetted order.
Signage is big in terms of signage for washing hands at the wash station. Signage at the entry of the door that says masks are required, or temperature testing is required prior to going in. And then in terms of other documentation is how are you handling your staff and how they engage with patrons. For example, masks should always be worn. Condiments that are being served should be single serve or single use. Things of that nature are what are supposed to be documented in their standard operating procedures.
She also noted that there should be no chairs at the entrance and waiting areas of the restaurants in order to limit the number of patrons who would occupy those areas before they can be seated inside. The inspections at the weekend targeted eateries along the East Coast and East Bank corridors, as well as Georgetown. 21 eating establishments failed to meet the requirements for conditional approval to restart indoor dining. As such, they were given an additional week to implement the necessary measures. James pointed out that the most common deficiency among the eateries that have not been given approval as yet is inadequate signage for patrons.
Signage and monitoring systems that need to be in place, for example, the temperature testing, sanitation stations that people can wash their hands or use a sanitizer before they go into the establishment. And signage was the biggest part. Wearing of masks, for example, that sign needed to be up, requiring that temperature testing, social distancing markers even within the building of itself, things of that nature.
All establishments permitted to facilitate indoor dining can be identified by a sign erected on the premises, which indicates that they have been given conditional approval to host patrons in an indoor capacity. Among the establishments that have been greenlighted to reopen are Church's Chicken Camp and Middle Streets, Hilton Restaurant, Garnet and Milton Streets, Camberville, Popeye's Chicken and Seafood Restaurant, Camp Street, Hard Rock Cafe and Jack's International Grill, Movie Town Compound. The COVID-19 emergency measures was amended on Friday last by Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony. The order stipulates that indoor and outdoor dining at a restaurant shall only be permitted between the hours of 4 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Where applicable, indoor dining is restricted to 40% capacity of the building. It further outlines that tables should be placed 6 feet apart from each other and no more than 4 persons should be seated at one table at least 3 feet apart. Staff at restaurants are required to wear a face mask and sanitize dining tables and chairs after use by each customer. Temika Rodney reporting for the HGP Nightly News.